And I said, you know, Dad, how about a lawyer or some real help? And but I was suffering so much, and there was just all of this unhappiness in my life, and I was reacting in such an unwise, unskillful way. And I said, okay, I'm desperate enough. I'll try it. I'll try anything to find some happiness in this life, because everything I've tried hasn't worked. Drugs didn't work. Material things didn't work. Nothing gave any kind of satisfaction, any sense of well-being. So I sat in that room and I started meditating in a very simple mindfulness, present time awareness, bringing attention into the here and now, what's happening in me, around me, in this moment, present time. Which sounds really simple, right? But it's so challenging. All of us that have tried to do it, the mind doesn't like to stay put. It likes to think about the future, always in the planning mind. Or in the past, in the resentments, and the reminiscing, and the salad days. If I could only get back to that first yoga class I did, that first meditation, that first experience. So I sat there and I started meditating, and it really it changed everything about my life. It's exactly what I needed at the time. I needed a practical, applicable tool to deal with the cravings that I was having, with the suffering that I was experiencing. And since then, for almost 30 years now, I've been practicing mindfulness every day. And mindfulness has become more and more mainstream, and more, we have mindful triathlon with Wanderlust. It's become this American institution and practice, but I think a lot of people still aren't quite sure exactly what mindfulness is. So I'm going to take a couple minutes to explain to you what I believe it is, and then we'll do some mindful meditation, sitting, a stillness practice. Traditionally, there's 4 foundations to mindfulness. The first foundation is the body, bringing our full attention out of the thinking mind, out of our heads, into our bodies. Physical sensation, present time awareness of sensation. And one of the anchors to the body, to the present moment, that we often focus on is the breath, because the body's always breathing. There's a sensation created with every breath, so it's a good anchor here and now. And even as I'm speaking, you can bring your attention to your breath. The first instruction is breathing in, know that you're breathing in. Breathing out, know that you're breathing out. What sensations do you receive, are you aware of? And then there's all of the other sensations. Right now in the body, there's a sensation of the sunshine, of the breeze, of the sitting posture, awareness of sitting, contact with the earth, gravitational pull, heaviness. First foundation is the body, embodied, present time awareness. Second foundation, traditionally, of mindfulness is, how does it feel? Is the perception, is our perception pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? Right now you're having sensations, and some of them maybe are pleasant. Like the sunshine is such an interesting example, because if you're cold, you go into the sunshine, it feels so pleasant. But then if you've been in the sunshine for too long, the perception of that same sensation changes. So it's no longer pleasant. Now it's unpleasant. And then there's some experience that we're going to be having in the body that is what we call neutral, neither pleasant nor unpleasant. So bringing mindfulness, what's happening and how does it feel? Does it feel pleasant? Does it feel unpleasant? Does it feel neutral? The third foundation is we can't ignore our minds and our emotions forever. Having an awareness practice or a spiritual practice that is one of avoidance isn't going to be so skillful, right? Sometimes we do these meditations and they're about ignoring your mind, turning your mind off, and then you get this temporary bliss. You get really concentrated, you start hyperventilating, it feels so great for 10 minutes. But in mindfulness, we say you can't ignore your mind forever, and the mind creates both joy and sorrow. How we think is how we feel. And so the third foundation of mindfulness is about changing our relationship to our own minds. Turning your attention, present time awareness, what's arising in my mind? Looking directly at your own mind with your mind. What's arising here? Is this planning? Is this remembering? Is this this judging? Is this low self-esteem again? Am I that inner critical voice being loud again this morning or this afternoon? So what's happening in the mind? And the mind is the birthplace of emotion. So fear arises in the mind, is felt in the body. Anger arises in the mind, is felt in the body. And so really having a relationship, mindfulness of what's happening. So rather than letting our thoughts and our emotions drive us, control us, actually developing a wise and compassionate relationship to the mind. This is where that second foundation is so important. And the second, what's happening in the body, what's happening in the mind, and how does it feel? Because anytime we're aware of this is pleasant, then we can have a wise relationship to pleasure. Now our common, our ordinary, our survival instinct relationship to pleasure is attachment. This feels good, I want it to stay. I want to keep it, clinging, craving, lusting for more pleasure. That's normal, that's just in all of us. It's part of our DNA, survival instinct, biological evolution, clinging to pleasure, craving for pleasure. But with mindfulness, you can say, oh, every time I cling, I have some unnecessary suffering in my life. I create the stress of clinging to an impermanent experience, to a changing experience. So then ultimately, mindfulness begins to teach us to let go. Oh, how can I enjoy this dance party, yoga party experience without turning it into suffering because it's almost over. And we suffer at the end rather than enjoy it all the way through. So with mindfulness, then we learn non-attachment. Oh, I need to learn to appreciate, enjoy, soak it up without clinging. And we see what's our normal relationship to pain. Your mind says, I hate pain. I have very little tolerance for pain. I want to avoid pain. But what mindfulness's real focus is what's a wise relationship? Present time awareness of pain calls for compassion. Calls for learning to be uncomfortable. Pain is unavoidable. It's so clear to all of us that just having a nervous system, having a heart, a psyche, we're going to have all of those unpleasant sensations and emotions and thoughts. Unavoidable. From this perspective, even a fully awakened, fully enlightened being still has pain in their life. Pain doesn't go away. This myth of it's going to be bliss forever is just that. It's a myth. If you have a body, you have pain. And the appropriate relationship to pain is compassion. And compassion isn't some sort of magical, mystical thing. Compassion is a skill that we develop through our own efforts. The more we pay attention, the more we incline our hearts, we direct our hearts, like the end of the meditation, Jennifer said, may all beings be at ease. This is a core part of the meditative practice. By repeating those kind of phrases, we incline our mind and our heart towards care, towards friendliness, towards compassion. So there's the pleasant response, non-attachment. There's the pain response, kindness and compassion. And then there's all of the neutrality. I bet most of us would say, yeah, I want to be at peace. I want to have serenity. I want to have ease. I want to have peace in my life. But what happens when you have those peaceful moments? When it's neutral, it's not painful, it's not pleasurable. What really happens? Do you have a good tolerance for peace? I know for me, I'm sort of an intensity junkie. So when I started meditating and I started getting to peace, I found it quite boring. Like, this peace stuff is overrated. I was thinking it was going to be a little bit more fun. And I realized I had to not only learn how to tolerate my pain and have compassion for it, I had to learn how to tolerate not suffering. Neutrality. And that's true for a lot of us, because our survival instinct is, I want it to be pleasurable. I think that's why so many spiritual teachings promise happily ever after, promise bliss, promise joy. Because the human condition is that I want bliss. I want it to feel good all of the time. From my perspective, from the mindfulness perspective, that's just not reality. It's just not practical. What's practical is being at peace in the midst of a sunburn. with the unpleasantness. Oh, this is really unpleasant. With compassion, we're at peace with the unpleasantness, with the difficulty, with the political climate, with the inequality. Now, peace doesn't mean complacency. It says there's this acceptance. Right now, it's like this. Is one of my mantras. One of my teachers said over and over, as many times as you can, remind yourself, right now it's like this. So acceptance. It's right now. It's unpleasant. There's all of this injustice, all of this ignorance in the world. It is acceptance. It's like this. And it's calling for response. How can we be engaged? How can we act for justice, for equality? The other piece of developing kindness and compassion is not just paying attention, but also actively engaging your mind. Part of what mindfulness is actually creating a neural pathway, creating a mind habit. By bringing our attention back to the present moment over and over, we're strengthening the habit of mindfulness. By spending a whole day like this, where you're paying attention while you're running, you're paying attention while you're doing the asana yoga, paying attention while you're eating. Mindfulness becomes every activity. And we stop living in the future or in the past, and we become more and more present and more skilled at meeting the present in the wise way, in the appropriate way, with compassion or with letting go or forgiveness, whatever needs to happen, so that we can be at ease in the midst of our reality. So those are some of my thoughts about mindfulness. And if you take a seat that's upright and relaxed, or if you're already kind of tired out from all of the activity, if you want to do a reclining meditation, a shavasana, if you want to lay down, that's